This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Hello and welcome to this week's Liverpool.com podcast. I'm Matt Addison. Rich Garnett is with me as well, and we're going to have a chat about how to fix Liverpool. It's been a tricky period for Arne Slot's team. The international break we thought was coming at a good time, but of course that poor run continued with another defeat, this time at the hands of Manchester United. Before we try and get stuck into a few different ways that Arne Slot could try and get more out of his Liverpool team, it's certainly full of talent, we should give a word to our sponsors, NordVPN. They've got a new app available to download. It gives you reliable and affordable internet access on your trips abroad. It's called Salah, and it's a new eSIM service app. With that, you can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans. You'll always have a connection when you need one, and you can download Salah in your app store and use our code BLOODRED at checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. With all of that in mind, though, Rich, let's get stuck into the football. It's, as we said just before we recorded this podcast, it's been a tricky time, hasn't it? It's not going well for Liverpool at the moment. It kind of was going well at the start without them really playing well. It's now very much gone the opposite way in terms of the results. The performances have not necessarily improved either.
Well, they definitely haven't improved, Matt. That's for certain. If anything, they seem to be getting worse, which is a cause for concern, but there's a lot to digest at the moment, isn't there? And it's difficult to know where to start. But what I would say is right at the start of the season, Liverpool spent an awful lot of money on quite a lot of players. And my initial concern about that was that we were possibly changing too much too soon. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the reason for this poor run of form, but it's definitely got to come into the thinking. There was a lot of changes, a lot of new players to bed in, and perhaps with some other players leaving, a different way of playing to implement as well. And didn't seem too bad after the first 5 matches or so. But even during that period, we were talking about last-minute winners and Liverpool looking leaky at the back and having to rely on late goals to win games, and that has now been reversed. They are losing games on late goals, which doesn't point to any sort of consistency one way or the other. And it's fair to say that Arne Slot has got a lot to sort out. His honeymoon period is now officially over. It was a very long honeymoon period, fair play, which I had 3 weeks when I got married. Matt, he got a whole season, so fair play. But funny enough, he has been away recently, hasn't he? He's been in Dubai, so I'd probably park the holidays for now and get down to the business of trying to fix this puzzle that he's got, because he's not getting a tune out of these players, no matter who he's picking. But the ones that he's picking haven't been delivering, so I feel like there's a bit of change coming and he's going to have to implement it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say with making changes to this Liverpool team is that it's 2 or 3 weeks on from Jamie Carragher and various others saying, well, the solution to this is take Florian Wirtz out and go back to what they did last season. Arne Slot has pretty much done that, and it hasn't really worked. It's, as you say, it's got worse, if anything. So, I mean, let's start with the attack. Let's go for that first. I mean, there's lots of quality parts. It doesn't seem at the moment like they fit together, but I suppose Mohamed Salah is the sort of headline act in all of that. He just hasn't really ever got going this season. He's scored, I think, 3 goals, 2 from the penalty spot, 1 from open play. It's not going well for him, is it? But I suppose the saving grace in a way is that he is still getting chances. Does that give you a little bit of hope that maybe it will just take one for his confidence to come back? Because that's kind of how it seems to me, really, for a player of his experience. And we know how good he was last season in front of goal. It just seems to have all fallen apart for him whenever he gets those opportunities.
Yeah, well, I certainly don't think he's become a bad player overnight. So I think if they can work out how to get the best out of Salah again, he'll start delivering the goals, and as games open up a bit more, he'll provide more assists as well. And I think he's having to develop his game a little bit. He doesn't have Trent Alexander-Arnold behind him anymore. It's a different way of playing. He seems to be receiving the ball less from what I can see. And Salah didn't always convert every chance he ever gets. He may have an unbelievable goal scoring record, but he misses his fair share as well. So I think he does need a number of chances in a game to deliver the numbers that we've been accustomed to seeing from him. But those chances appear to have become a little bit more marginalised. And when he is getting chances, he's not converting them. He obviously had another great one on Sunday, which I think he put into the side netting that you would expect an informed Salah to score. There's an argument he could have squared it to Florian Wirtz, but I don't think Salah's passing the ball there, is he? That's not going to happen. And I'm sure he's frustrated about the situation, but it does give Slot a decision to make, and if he decides to take Salah out, if he wanted to look at someone else, Federico Chiesa is knocking on the door. He's had limited minutes, but he's had goal involvement and goals. So if you were him, you'd be asking the question: is this now my opportunity to come into the side? But either way, should he take Salah out of the side, it's going to create headlines, and it is an issue for Slot. I think he's the one player at Liverpool whose standing in the game is above everyone else's, and it will be an issue for him if he takes Salah out, and how the player reacts as well is something that is going to be having to take into consideration, and that is a big challenge for Arne Slot. He needs to decide if he wants to keep faith with his talisman or look at a different option, and I think there is an argument that Frankfurt is a good opportunity to do that because it's not in the Premier League. He can sort of rotate his team a little bit more in that competition. Obviously, Liverpool need a win. They lost their last Champions League match, but this format does afford you one or two slip-ups, as we saw with Manchester City last year. And obviously, Liverpool finished right at the top of the tree, but won and ended up playing Paris in the next round. So he probably has got a tiny little bit of wiggle room to experiment. And I think maybe he might make that change this week, and we'll get to see someone else in that position.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Jeremy Frimpong, didn't we, fill in? I think that was in the Galatasaray game, wasn't it? That was the one that Salah was dropped to the bench for the last one. Didn't really happen for him. I'm not quite sure whether that's his best position. Equally not sure whether his best position is at right back either, but that's another conversation to be had. I suppose, as you say, the other option would be Federico Chiesa, but then I do wonder whether the impact that he has, he's maybe a player I think that's suited to coming off the bench when it's maybe a 10 or 15 minute burst rather than an hour or 70 minutes where he has to put in all of that effort and exert all of that for that period. I wonder whether physically that might change him a little bit. He's obviously coming into games when they are a little bit more open as well, which changes it.
You're not going to know that though unless we see him from the start in a meaningful match.
That's true. Yeah, I do just wonder whether that might be Crystal Palace in the League Cup next week though, rather than one of the two games this week. But yeah, I mean that's definitely an option, isn't it? It's something that Liverpool are going to have to think about anyway. With Salah going to AFCON, they're going to have to find some sort of solution to that. Alexander Isak as well, though, isn't firing. And I suppose if you get one of them going, then maybe that can help the other one. It all feels like a bit of a knock-on effect for me. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago with Florian Wirtz. We'd be having very different conversations if the players around him scored the goals or scored from the chances that he created. It feels a little bit similar with Isak and Salah as well, because I'm sure, like me, you've probably played that 1v1 that Isak had at the weekend back over in your head a few times and just think if that had have gone in, it's a completely different game. If Salah's chance had gone in, it is a completely different game as well. So it all feels like a bit of a knock-on domino effect for me at the moment, which gives me a little bit of hope that if one of those elements can be fixed, maybe the other ones can be fixed as well.
Well, let's be clear. Liverpool haven't got bad players, have they? They might not be playing very well, but the abundance of talent they've got at their disposal is absolutely ridiculous. So much so that it is hard for Slot to pick the correct team at the moment, I feel. And I mean, and that's that's not a judgment. That's borne out by the results that we've seen so far. He needs to find a way of getting those players to gel and play as a cohesive unit. And at the moment, they're not doing that. One of the biggest takeaways I took from Sunday's depressing outing was that a lot of the time the players look like strangers on the pitch, which is not something we've been used to with Liverpool sides in recent years. Yes, we've been a little bit spoilt. But here we have a lot of high quality players that don't look like they really know each other. And that really concerned me. The chemistry on the pitch has got to be better. I mean, there was one point where we nearly had two players taking a throw in at the same time with two different balls in the second half. So, I don't think we're quite ready for multi-ball in Premier League football in that sense. But it was. I know it's only a little incident, but it's just examples of where the players aren't communicating effectively with each other, and something needs to be done to sort of build that harmony. And I guess it's difficult to keep everyone happy when you can only play 11 players, and some of these players will definitely be thinking, I should be in the team, that player shouldn't be in the team. I mean, what's Hugo Ekitike got to do to start? He's probably, as far as I'm concerned, been Liverpool's most impressive performer so far this season, certainly out of the new signings. And yet he's struggling to get a start because we're in a position where really the manager can't afford to have the club's record signing sat on the bench. So is it time to look at accommodating both of them in the team? And if he does that, has he got to rip up the whole design of the formation of the way Liverpool play? I mean, I don't know what you think about Ekitike, but I don't see how it can be justified that he's sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he didn't start against Frankfurt to start with. And I think probably is, as you say, deserving of a run in that team. It does all just go back to the plan when they signed him. Obviously, at that moment, they didn't know for sure that they were going to get Isak, but it was certainly still on the agenda. And you'd assume that behind the scenes, they've had those conversations with those players or sort of with Arne Slot in terms of how he thinks it's all going to fit together, because it just looked a little bit of a mess. I thought that the last third of the game against Manchester United, I mean, they basically played a 4-1-5 formation where Curtis Jones was just stood in the midfield on his own and then just had five forwards in front of him. Now, that I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination is how you fit Hugo Ekitike into this team. But there's got to be a way of doing that. There's got to be a way still of building Isak up as well. And I wonder, whether maybe it's a front two and Wirtz goes to the left-hand side. Maybe it's, a slight tweak of the formation, but then that kind of just, the summer transfers then in a way start to unravel when you start to change things at this point in the season. You can't move away from the blueprint, whatever that plan was in the summer. I think to move away from it now would look a little bit desperate. So I would get Ekitike in there. Would you take Isak out and put him in as the number 9, or how do you kind of see that puzzle fitting together?
Well, my initial thought is I don't know, to be honest with you, because first off, as far as I'm concerned, Ekitike has got to play. He's looked the most dangerous goal threat for Liverpool all season. The other point is Isak's the club's record signing. He is expected to deliver the goals. That's what he was signed for. He's got a track record to back that up with. So surely you've got to find a way of getting them both in. The problem is they are quite similar players, but I'm not sure I quite yet buy the idea that they can't play in the same side, but it's just a case of whether you can afford to change it to try and accommodate them both in, and if you can't, then there's a bit of a question mark as to why both of them were signed, because it's not like one was cheap and the other one was was expensive. They were both expensive, different levels of expensive, admittedly, but they were both serious investments. And the Slot needs to find a way to make it work. I have concerns about the prospect of Wirtz being pushed out on the left. I'm not saying he couldn't do that, but that certainly wasn't why he was signed, I don't think, was it? It was very much, to sort of play in that sort of number 10 role behind a front man and unpick defences. And there's not really any suggestion to me that he would do any better on the left-hand side than, say, Gakpo or someone with the pace of Ungamoa. So do we really want to put Florian Wirtz there? I wouldn't have thought so. Big problem. It's a big problem. I mean, the other thing you could do is, and this is sort of ripping things up, is to sort of change how you set up the back to get more players into midfield. I mean, Kerkez and Frimpong like to get forwards, but they're not really. Well, they need to. Certainly when they're playing on a back four, and they need to concentrate on their defensive responsibilities, because that's very much where Liverpool are getting exploited at the moment. And we haven't even touched on defence yet, Matt. So this pod will get less depressing, I'm sure, at some point. We'll inject some positivity here, won't we, Matt? But it may be a back three could be something to consider, or some way in which the fullbacks can sort of form a 5-man midfield and still manage to have 2 up front. I don't know. It's I sound desperate in my reasoning, and with good reason.
One win for Ruben Amorim, and everyone wants to go to a back three. Honestly,
there you go. And I've had a few days to digest this as well, which is even worse.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see him going with 3 centre backs, if I'm being honest. But maybe there's a sort of move where Ryan Gravenberch can drop in and maybe make a sort of unorthodox back three in a sense. Maybe there's something that Liverpool can do along those lines.
A dynamic back three, I like that. So not always at the back, but just drop it in, maybe.
It's definitely a conundrum, isn't it? I mean, let's move over to the defence now. I think we've criticised enough of the Liverpool attackers, so let's move on to some different personnel instead. I mean, there's been lots of chat about Milos Kerkez, which I think has been slightly harsh. I mean, Gary Neville compared him to watching a 10-year-old, which I think is an exaggeration of sort of how bad he was. I'm not saying by any stretch that he's been perfect at the start of this season, but I don't think Liverpool's defensive issues are down to him. I think there's sort of structural problems. I think the 2 centre-backs, probably Kanate was all right actually against Manchester United. Virgil van Dijk, we know his level, but was being asked to do 3 or 4 different jobs and couldn't really do that at any point. And obviously right back, we've discussed plenty of times, Dominik Szoboszlai's played there and probably done better than the 2 actual right backs that Liverpool have got. So I don't want to lay this at the floor of Milos Kerkez by any stretch, but is he a player that you would consider swapping? Do you think there's maybe an argument for Andy Robertson to come in to just shore things up a little bit defensively for Liverpool, even though, as I say, it's not just Kerkez's fault?
Well, hosting the Blood Red podcast on Friday, I put Robertson in my team. So that's your short answer. I wouldn't have actually played Kerkez against United. I was pretty certain he was going to be targeted. That turned out to be the case. And of all Liverpool's new signings, I feel like he's one that probably would benefit from having a bit of heat taken off him. And that could include maybe a period out of the side. You've got a very experienced left back in Andy Robertson there. It's not like he hasn't got there isn't an able replacement. You couldn't get a more experienced winner than Andy Robertson. So at a time where Liverpool appear to be shipping goals for fun, it makes sense to bring in an experienced head as far as I'm concerned and try and shore things up. And if that puts a bit more of the attack and responsibility on players further up the pitch, then so be it. But it's not like Andy Robertson can't get forward anyway, is it? He's made a career out of that at Liverpool. And it was a fairly easy decision for me, but not one that the manager took. So I think it's one he may now take.
Yeah, I've been surprised actually that he's not played Andy Robertson a little bit more often. I mean, even when Robertson came in, it took a while for him to switch and get into that team on a regular basis. But it does sort of feel like Arne Slot's gone, well, we've paid £40 million for Milos Kerkez, so he's just going to play every week regardless of what happens. And yeah, I'm slightly surprised that transition hasn't been a little more slow and a little bit more 50-50 really in terms of those minutes. I think that maybe would have made a little bit more sense, which ties in again with what you said at the start around has there been too much change too soon for Liverpool? That's probably a position where you think that was an obvious one to kind of make it a little bit more of a transition period rather than just throwing him straight in from the start. But on the other side of the pitch as well, I mean, Conor Bradley wasn't, particularly poor against Manchester United. It was a bit of not a nothing performance, but a middling performance. He didn't do anything particularly good or particularly bad. I mean, would you keep him in the team? Would you try and look at Jeremy Frimpong? Is there almost a case for just picking a back four and sticking with it for a few games? I wonder whether a little bit of consistency in those areas might help, not least because obviously Alisson is injured at the moment as well, which doesn't help. But I don't know, what is the solution with the defence? I know that's a big question.
Yeah, so I'm on record as being a Conor Bradley fan. So, but, his form has been a little bit questionable recently, certainly putting himself in awkward positions where he's ended up having to be subbed a couple of times in matches because he's, tightrope walking on a yellow card. That type of thing is something that he needs to avoid. But I agree with you that they do need continuity at the back. And they need to stop leaking goals. And I said on Friday, they need a clean sheet. If they get a clean sheet on Sunday, they win the game. So, conceding the goal after 3 minutes is you're giving yourself a mountain to climb right from the off against the team that, that was going to come and set out to stifle. So continuity, definitely. I do think the left back change seems a common sense one. Take Kerkez out of the firing line, give him a bit more time to bed in and come to terms with what's expected of him now he's joined a club like Liverpool, whilst you've got a highly experienced player who can basically show him the way at left back. At right back, the only time I've been impressed with Jeremy Frimpong so far is when he's going forward. I thought he actually did really well when he came on against United. On Sunday, he put 2 cracking balls in that on another day someone might have got on the end of and converted the goal off. So fair play to him for that. He certainly did more than Salah had done in the previous minutes he'd been on the pitch, as far as I was concerned. But as a right back, and yet to be convinced by him, I don't want to see Dominic Szoboszlai there because I think he's key to Liverpool's energy in midfield. That's more of a needs must. And it doesn't yet look like he fancies Joe Gomez in that role. So I think you've got to stick with Bradley on that basis. And, if we can keep that sort of back four of, I would say, Bradley, Konate, Van Dijk and Robertson for a few games and just see how that beds in. And there's a different goalkeeper behind them as well. So that's another change at the back that you've got to take into consideration. So there's a lot going on. Again, that whole gelling and being a cohesive unit issue that we were talking about forever at the pitch, still same applies to the defence as well. So I think expectations have probably been lowered a little bit now after this run of 4 defeats. So let's just sort of take that on the chin, reevaluate what Liverpool can achieve, get a clean sheet for God's sake, and build from that. If we can build a defensive foundation, I reckon a lot of things could fall into place sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it almost the other way around, actually. I think if Liverpool start scoring their chances, you can almost paper over the cracks a little bit at the back. I saw that.
They've done that, though, haven't they? They did that at the start of the season.
Well, yeah, of course, at some point, you've got to sort out the defence as well. I do just wonder whether it's easier and a quicker fix maybe for Isak and Salah to start scoring than it is for suddenly Konate to not look like he's playing on skates and the fullbacks and all the rest of it to kind of fall into place as well. Look, I'm not sure what the answer is, but I'm sure Arne Slot will be working on it. And I think it's going to be interesting, isn't it, to see what his team is against Frankfurt and obviously then, Brentford, Palace, I think it's Manchester City, isn't it, before the next international break. It just feels like Liverpool have got to hang on in there for the time being. They're 4 points behind Arsenal at the moment. They can't afford to be many more behind.
No, and it's a tough run of fixtures, isn't it? At a time when the team looks short of confidence. So, but it's also something that can be turned around in a game. a good result against a tough team will do them wonders. And the real plus points, because we need some plus points, Matt. The real
Let's finish on some pluses.
The real plus point is, they're still in a tight race, regardless of what anyone says. You know what I mean? They're not that far off. Just things have just fallen apart a little bit recently, and they have, and as I said right at the start, they have an abundance of high quality players. So these lads are winners, and they don't want to be losing any more football matches. That's for certain. So I'm sure there'll be some clear the air talks in training this week, and people trying to get their points of view across, and there might be some frank discussions as well. But I think that's all fine. They've all got the same common goal of, turning Liverpool back into the side that won the Premier League title last year and was unfortunate not to go further in the Champions League. And they can still do that. They just need to sort of fix this puzzle, and then everyone will be happy again.
Yeah, the bottom line is that they've got too many good players for this to last too long, I think, ultimately. If you've got a front four of Gakpo, Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak, Salah, whatever combination of those players, there's enough goals in there. We know how good individually those defenders and midfielders as well can be. So yeah, fingers crossed Arne Slot can find a solution. But I think we've talked enough about it. Positives to finish, plenty of negatives that we've gone over as well. Hopefully on next week's podcast, we'll be back with a few more positives than negatives, and we can readdress that balance from then. But for now, thank you, Rich, for joining me. Thank you to you guys as well at home for watching and for listening. And we'll be back next week on the Blood Red channel with the next Liverpool.com podcast.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.